Welcome to She Rises with Melody Williams and Amy Vona. My girl, my girl.
Yep.
I believe that every woman can arise.
Yes, absolutely.
There is an intimacy that now is exchanging on the job or somewhere else that should be occurring in the home. But once you're getting it fed, you don't really care where it's coming from.
That's right. No, that's right, because we have needs.
Yes, and it starts with just something as far as communication. You're not there for me. You don't understand. And then, I mean, it's so common. It's like the same trick in the book that happens so much. You feel as though, oh, the wife or the husband could be home, got all the kids, and now you absorbed with that, and that's where your focus is. And the focus stops being on the person that you said I do to. So now you're like, okay, how do I regain that? And it's to close the outside distractions, those doors, turn it inward and say, okay, we need to just unplug. We need to get away and start the conversation over again.
So let me ask you a question. If I was a young woman and let's say I was losing this connection and because like you said, it happens subtly. So you wind up, connecting with someone at work and then you're like, wait, we have this connection and maybe they have a need too that's not being met. So you're filling their needs, they're filling yours. Let's say you get to a point where you have like an aha moment and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't right. How I think a lot of females don't know how to then back up with so they and again, you would think that it would be as simple as saying, like, look, I realize that this isn't right. I shouldn't be doing this. But a lot of times females feel like they played into it so that they play a role in it. So, how would you give advice to somebody to get out of that situation once they're in it before it goes to something physical?
All right, first thing I always say, where are your boundaries? Are we just in a relationship? Is it casual? Is it just physical? Is it a friend with benefits? You kind of need to define what the relationship looks like, one. And then if it's something that you're vested in, then you want to make the decision, is it worth saving? So there's levels to it that I would suggest. And once you make that
Oh, yeah.
decision, yes, it's something that it's worth saving, then I would say, okay, then my approach would be I would begin to close the door or slowly pull away from the outside distraction and now focus my attention that I was giving outside to inside and say, you know what, we really need to talk. There's some, and
I love that.
you can, the old people used to say you can take, a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
That's
That
right.
there are times that we're in situations in life and we know we need something, but we're not willing to open up and take the help that we need. And if I think that it's really done all in how you deliver it to someone, that if it's done with compassion and love and support, then we're willing to make that change, especially when it's something that we've done all of our lives and we don't realize it. But then when someone brings it to the forefront of our mind, we're like, why am I so critical about myself? Why do I say what I say? What do I do? It is a part of my paradigm that I've always done, but now someone has brought it to my attention. And for me to realize that change always starts with me. Let me just go into a relationship real quick. A relationship dynamic, that whether it's a husband or wife or two friends, and you're seeing the other person and say, oh, they need to change or they need to fix that. But then you play a part in that role also. What part do you need to change? What part do you need to fix? Especially, I do a lot of, marriage counseling, and they usually come with oh, it's her fault, it's his fault, it's her fault, the back and forth. And I said, okay, wait, but the part that you play in the role either supports the interaction or the dynamic between the two of you. So it is, I just call it a couple. Everybody has a dance.
Believe you
Yeah.
just said that. So
Yes.
I have my specialization in marriage and family therapy, and that's one of the main things that we were taught in the specialization was that two people dance together. So this is the thing. There's somebody out there right now that's watching this and they're thinking, okay, well, my husband cheated on me. How did I dance together with that? And let me tell you how. There were signs and things that were happening, and it doesn't mean that anybody's right or wrong. This isn't about blame. This is about
Hmm.
understanding human behavior so that we
Yes.
can stop it before we get to that critical point or so that we
Yes.
could see it. So I thank you for bringing that up because that is huge. So let me just real quick, if somebody's like, well, how would I, how did I play a role in that? But there's something in the relationship that is happening that's allowing the behavior to continue. So whether it's the
Yes.
person doesn't feel that they have the self-worth to
Hmm.
stand up to it, or whether it's because they have five jobs and they're not, around the family, like whatever the case may be. It's not victim blaming. This should never happen. But again, to understand human behavior so that you can see these things for what they are when they happen.
Yes, I agree. And that sometimes it's the subtlety that we miss in the relationship And it could be something as small as communication. I feel as though you're not present in the moment for me. So now there's a disconnect. And with that disconnect, keep in mind in every relationship, somebody is going to fill that need for me. So whether it's in the home or whether it's outside the home. I know I'm looking at
That's
you like,
right.
I know, but it is because that's when you get the friend at work and we as women, we play it down like, oh, I'm just feeling that. Oh, it's not there. No, my feelings are real to me. And I have a voice in the relationship so that when I come to but now there may be more dynamics that now the person that you're dealing with has turned a deaf ear to you. So like now,
One of the things I do suggest to women, if you ever need to talk to like your spouse or boyfriend or girl, whatever, um, don't start out by saying, "Can we talk?"
right,
That's like the worst thing you could do.
because
You're
they know what's
literally,
coming. They know
you
what's
know what's
coming.
coming. You're like, what do you
Yes,
mean? Oh, they're breaking up with me at 3 o'clock. Like you just
yes.
so and then you give the person the time to think of all of the things that you're going to bring up, and then they already start thinking about comebacks. So instead of doing
Yep,
something
they've
like
got a
that,
guard up. They put the wall up
yeah,
already. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So instead of doing that, just do it in a moment. Just start talking. That way you catch the person off guard a little bit so they didn't have time to think about it beforehand. But I think also you have to be willing to accept what you hear, right? Maya Angelou
Yeah.
says, listen to somebody when they tell you who they are. So, and
Believe them. I want to make sure that we answer the question that you asked me too, though. What would I tell that young lady? So once we set up the boundaries as far as where's the stage of the relationship, one of the main things that I would say as far as communication, and you brought on an excellent point, as far as don't say, oh, we need to talk, because you have already put the wall up and now you're going to try and bring the wall down and they're not listening. That's the bottom line. They're not listening. So my thing is, I always say, you take it as far as, okay, if we're on a drive going somewhere for a minute, we go out to dinner, anywhere that it's just me and you, and now this is the focus. So even with dinner, let's leave our phones, aside for a minute, and we're going to talk, communicate, and it could be something as serious like, okay, what do you enjoy, and just what do you enjoy in this relationship? You want to see where they are,
that's a good
and then
question.
yeah, and that's going to open up the door to communication without saying we need to talk, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And not just that, think about it, right? So think about you being the person on the other end if you're listening to this. If
Mhm.
your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever said to you, we need to talk, where would your mind be as opposed to if you're sitting down and they ask you something about like, are you happy? What do you like the best of our relationship? So
Yeah.
these are different types of questions where you're setting them up for success, not failure. So they don't have
Yes.
to be defensive.
Yes. And that's how and that makes you approachable to them now.
It
Because
does.
if I'm not approachable, I've already shut you down. So you're talking about this young lady book. How can you do the assessment? Because that's what you really want to do. You want to do an assessment of your relationship to reset it. And so now if you're asking that question, so he says, well, you know what? I feel like you're never home anymore, or I feel like you're too busy here. Now they're telling you without putting you on the defense. I do an assessment with both parties to see where they are. And then if I deem that it's something hidden going on that they don't want to discuss in front of each other, I meet them separately. My perception is real to me. That is my truth, if that is my perception. So it could be wrong to someone else, but to
A
me,
thousand
it
percent.
could be right.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that I say all the time is perception's reality, even when it's not real. So what I mean by that
I
is
love it.
if
Love it.
somebody, yeah, if somebody perceives something. So if the parents are divorced and your 6-year-old thinks that daddy left because you asked him to drive you too many times to your friend's house, even though that might absolutely not be the case, probably, right? If the little
Right.
kid's in their room crying, thinking, I know daddy left because I asked him to drive me too many times, that's that kid's perception. That's their reality in that moment.
And that is real to that kid. That is
Very
real.
real.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we have to make sure that we don't, like throw it to the side because this is where the things start is when we're young. So when we say something to the kid like, oh no, like, are you ridiculous or whatever? Now we're just letting the kid know that their perception is ridiculous. So I think it's important because these are the kids that grow up that are going to be tuning in today. So a lot of
Yes.
this stuff started when you were younger and you didn't necessarily have control over that situation.
I love it now because, of course, you just opened up a whole doorway for me there because we're talking about relationships. And the main thing that I have seen, a lot of young girls have daddy issues, which are coming out in their relationship. So that, of
Like
course, ties
thousand
into
percent.
who created your paradigm of relationship.
Give our girls all these
Yeah.
Disney movies and we wonder why they're depressed when Prince Charming doesn't show up on a horse.
Or when Prince Charming really turns out to be the frog, okay? Not the other way around.
No, but you're right. It's the truth. So that
Yes.
doesn't mean that we should, but at the same time, because sometimes I think people hear that and then they go the total opposite way. So you shouldn't go the total opposite way and be like, life isn't like that, because you still want somebody to set high standards for themselves,
Yes.
but just
Yes.
letting them know that this is a fairy tale and it's a made up, type thing. I don't think that there's harm to that, but we do have to watch because you have to remember, right? So in 1 minute, we're telling them that, because I think this gets so complicated, right? So let's say your kid's thinking and they're watching all these movies and Disney princesses, and you try to get across that that's not necessarily real life, but then at the same time Christmas comes and we're like Santa's coming and stuff like that. So I do think, and then even with like the social media today, they have those things like the Slender Man guy. I don't know if you're aware
Yes.
of him, but he's a you know what I mean? And according to the Slender Man, you're not allowed to tell your parents about him or that he could kill them. And so my thing is like there's animism that we need to deal with too. And where do we find that balance between letting our kids know that this is real and this isn't? Would
I
you have
think
a
that is,
suggestion for that?
yes, and I think that is one of the I don't want to call the dynamics of parenting, that you have to find that fine line, because now I was not one of the parents that, raised my kids with the Santa Claus theme. I wasn't. I was
Oh,
very
you didn't. Why?
well, one, of course, for fundamental purposes, I was like, if this is something that you want, mommy and daddy will get it for you. So it just made good sense, because how can I tell you one thing is true and then I tell you another thing and you come to find out that it's a lie? So to be authentic, and that's something that, of course, we want to talk about on this channel. How can I be the authentic me and show up every time? So to
I
be
love that.
authentic in just parenting, because I remember when I found out that there was no Santa, I was kind of like, dang, that's jacked up. Like, you believe in this stuff. I didn't even have a chimney. So what was he gonna come down?
I didn't have a chimney either. Wait, so my dad he made like a cardboard chimney and
Uh-huh.
we put it like in the living room as a decoration. And I remember living in inner city Philadelphia in a row home. And I remember thinking like, and my youngest daughter is the one that said it to me because she was in a same thing, row home, inner city Philadelphia until a couple years ago. But I remember she even said to me, she's like, Ma, I know daddy's not letting some guy come down in a chimney that we don't have. Like, she was just so confused. Where my older daughter was like, I don't care. I want to believe it. So I feel like there's some kids
Yes.
that like, so with
Yes.
her, I didn't do it as much because I didn't want to disappoint her either. I feel like she knew that there was, but I'm like, not for nothing. You can't have your menstrual cycle and believe in Santa. Like, that's a little too much. She was like
Yeah.
13. I was like, all right, enough. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't be
And
asking
that's,
Santa for car
yes.
keys.
Yes. And it's kind of, I guess your parent, everyone has a different parenting style, but that was mine because, of course, that is always my endeavor to be authentic if I can, you know.
And
And
I
I
love
think,
that because as a mom, we want our kids to trust us and believe us. So it's almost like you said, well, what do you mean that's not real? So what else did you lie to me about?
right, right. And now you're talking about an awkward time, because it's like, okay, so you're most just instinctually, we trust our parents to tell us the truth, to lead us, to guide us, direct us. So now, and that's all, life culture would have to suggest to them. Well, mommy lied about this. What else did mommy lie about? And that was something simple. So, so you're building
Yes.
that division, and once again, we're talking about just the subtlety of life can put you on a spiral that you don't know where the end is.
And this, I think, a big part of this podcast will be how do we get off of that moving train without getting hurt?
Yes,
Because I
I
think a lot of people don't realize they're in a moving train like that going down the road of bad until they're already on the train and it's going.
listen. They have the steering wheel in their hand, don't realize you the one steering the train.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, exactly. A partner, this is another thing. So let's say you were dealing with a couple who was not married and who did not have children yet. And they were in a situation where, because this happened to a student of mine, and she said to me that he logged into her computer the one night and I guess he put in his password or whatever and her computer saved it. So it was one of those things where she like accidentally happened upon a bunch of text messages that she didn't know were there.
Okay.
So now the boy's like, oh, he got caught and he's like, oh, and he's trying to work it out. But my thing is, you're not married yet and you don't have kids yet. And if this person's hurting you this bad already, would you give that girl the advice to get out of that relationship?
Okay, just me personally, and I have experience. I've got a story that says things like that. Now because I told her she should have been an investigator, is how good this woman was. She caught him multiple times. I mean, flat-footed, text, pictures, she had it all. And then
Wow.
I would never tell anyone to step away from their relationship. That has to be an
Good.
independent, I would say an independent, strategic plan. You don't just walk away from something,
You're right.
especially if
Strategic
you,
is right.
yes, and that is it. You have to have a plan. And if anyone knows, I will tell you what's the plan. So you just don't, oh, one night tell me, oh, I'm out of here. No, because we as women, we don't do something sporadic. If I'm thinking about leaving, I have thought about it for a while. I don't just work up one day, brush my teeth, and say, you know what, I think I'm leaving him. No, I have been thinking about it for a minute, and I'm just waiting for the right moment to
You're
make
right.
a move. But then I say, when we make a move, it needs to be strategic, especially if you're living together or you're vested. I mean, you've got real estate together. If you're in, you have to have a plan. You just don't walk out because you don't know what you're leaving behind.
And you need
Now,
to know what your decisions are going to lead to.
yes, you have options. So you need to find out your options. And if it's something like that, we have a home together, but we're not married, then legally you need to find out what your options are before you walk out the door. Are you abandoning your children? Because I would say, if you're a mother, wait a minute, you don't, I mean, because you've got to take, I mean, I would think you, but now I've dealt
I
with women
would.
that
Not
have not.
everybody, but I would too. I
Thank
would take
you.
my kids.
I have dealt with women that have not taken their kids and just left. Now, back in the day, that was unheard of, but
Mm-mm.
we're in
Yeah,
a different world now.
we
So
are.
yes, so all of those things need to be taken in consideration before you make the great escape.
I agree. So what if they don't have like any real estate together and this is more of like a boyfriend girlfriend, they've been
Okay,
dating for a year? Because this is the thing. A lot of these young adults, they're 20. So to them, if they're in a 2.5 year relationship, like you have to remember, we don't really remember much before five unless it's tragic. So now we're talking about five to like 20. So we're only talking 15 years. That's really not a lot of time. So to
right.
them, 3 years out of that is like a huge part of their life. And they're like, well, now it's like ruin, or I just ruined that time. And I'm like, no, you didn't.
No, no, you did. Because even with that, there's two things. You said, what would I tell her? The first
Yeah.
thing
What
I'd
would you
ask
tell
her
her?
is, why is she in the relationship? That's what I want to know. Why are you still there? What are you getting out of the relationship? What are you afraid of losing? Because whether it's, the victimization, you say you victimize the victim. So whether she's still there, but it's like, we break up, we make up, but I heard somebody say, oh, well, the sex is great after we break up.
That
We
annoys me.
totally, totally. So
So
you
wait,
have
why
to
does it
agree,
annoy you? And then I'll tell you why it annoys me.
because I'm thinking like that, one, you diminish me as a woman, that now we have to be almost violent for you to have passionate love with me. Okay,
So if you're listening to this, do not put the two things together because then what happens is, like you were saying, Melody, then you don't want to be, I have to be in this horrible thing to get the good part. No. So I don't feel like makeup sex is a good idea at all,
at all.
because you're just reinforcing the fact that the more we fight, the better the sex. No, thank you.
Right.
How about
Because
the
the
better
reality,
you treat me, the better the sex is? How about that?
come on, yes. How about that?
How
Because
about that?
when I'm mad, my whole body's mad. Okay. It's like,
Yes,
it's all of it. But
you're
that's what
right.
I think it comes down to. Where is she broken? That she is letting him do this over and over again to her. She's broken somewhere. There's a
Somewhere.
disconnect. She's either going through the, okay, I wanted to be daddy's little girl, daddy left, got no whatever. There's some place she is broken, that she is repeating the cycle over again, hoping that it will change. But now, if you don't introduce anything new, what's going to make it change?
So if you're listening to this with the name calling, when you're in a brand new relationship, think of it as a brand new plate that you just got. Brand new, beautiful plate. Every time you curse at each other or you say something mean to each other, like you're a piece of crap or you're this or you're that, you break your plate, right? So even with the best glue, you could have the best therapist, the best glue, put it together, it looks perfect. It's still a fragile plate because it's been broken. Don't
Absolutely.
allow it from the beginning.
That's it. Because the first time, and that's something that, and not saying that we have the ideal relationship, but I am very proud because we work on our relationship.
No, me too. But I think
We
that's
work
what
on
we're
it.
going to offer so many people is
Yes,
that we've both have been in very long-term loving relationships. My husband is my best friend. Your husband is your
Yes,
best friend. Do
yes,
you know what I
yes.
mean? So I think if anything, that gives us a lot more to offer. How did we go from, how do we get somebody that's going to love us for?
Too, and I'll just kind of give you just, I call them words of wisdom, as far
Love
as,
that.
whoever's listening, that the main thing that we were born into, we were born to make sure that we had security. That is the main thing with one. I will follow you around the world if I know I'm secure. If I am your
You're right.
first thought, we will follow. Now, men are task oriented. They have to, whether it's a sports, there has to be a beginning, middle, and a climax. That's just how they're wired. So that's why you hear young guys like, oh, I don't want to get married yet because I'm not settled, I'm not established, I'm not this. It is the conquering piece of the way that men are wired, that they
That's
have to
true.
secure something. And then if they don't have an assignment, they're lost and they're confused because they don't
I
know
love
where to
that.
put roots at. And you just look at it, guys, why they're so competitive, whether it's in business or whether it's in sports, they are trying to solve that equation as far as what is my purpose, what is my assignment, what am I here for? And that's why, of course, it was the first thing they needed to do. They went to work. Okay, then check one. Can I afford to do this now? So any relationship that failed, there were always warning signs that you either chose to listen to or not to listen to. You chose
Right.
to see it. Oh, well, that's just the way he is. You made an excuse for him. Oh,
That's right.
he really didn't mean it. Yeah, if he did it, he did mean it.
That's
Okay.
right.
So we lie to ourselves to keep us in it, because there's a young lady I'm dealing with right now. I think she's got like 13, 14 years in. No ring, no real commitment. And it's like, what are you waiting for? But now the trick is that I've put so much time in, do I really walk away?
But it's
And
still
see,
okay.
but my point is, where have you made the demand to step up? You have not. And I keep saying, oh goodness, just help us. That we're saying to these young girls, okay, if you're giving him everything now, why marry you?
Yeah.
You're doing everything, whether it's outside the bedroom, inside the bedroom, you're doing all of that. And because you do not value, and I told you I was going to say it, you don't value your cookies, then now you're looking like, what else is it? I mean,
I
you're
agree.
jumping off the ceiling, you're swinging from the lanterns. What is there to bring into marriage that he has not already experienced?
No, you're right. But it's funny you say that about swinging off the that I think that's great. But anyway, so I tell my students and my daughters and stuff, sex is not what you see on the internet. So
Yes.
it shouldn't be people swinging from the ceiling fan and stuff. Like you should like in real life, people don't swing from the chandelier or do like a flip and then land on you type thing. Like I think sometimes people just like they have expectations that are just not real. So I try to
Yes.
remind people, remember, if you're ever seeing something on the internet, know that most of the time there was a contract that was made and these people sat down first and they did the things that we're saying to do. Like they had a conversation. They were like, are you cool with this? Yes. Are you cool with that? No. Are you? So they have a contract and they're also acting. So you
That's
have to put
it.
that into
That's
there
it.
too. That's
That's
not real
that's the
life.
main thing. That is not. But see, your paradigm doesn't know the difference. How can I prove it to you real quick? When we go into a movie, everybody's doing a Halloween thing now, that my emotions get tied to what's on the screen. And my mind doesn't know the difference, because why? Why do I cry in movies? Because I'm emotionally connected, because my paradigm thinks it's real, even though my mind is saying, well, it's just a movie. Then why are you crying? Okay. Why are you upset? Why is your heart beating so fast? Because you're running, because they're walking down the dark alley. So my paradigm doesn't know the difference when my mind is trying to tell me it's not real. So when I see it on the screen, or I see it as something that you're looking at, and we can talk about porn, when you're looking at that, that now you think, okay, this is real, because my paradigm is saying, oh, I gotta try it. This is real. It's an actor.
How do you grow with a person? Do you know what I mean? Because we are going to grow. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I was going to have a doctorate degree in educational leadership, I would have been like, no. And, but I do, I'm going to be soon. I'm getting there.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
like, and that's good, right? So you can continue to grow and strengthen your identity throughout life. It doesn't have to be something that's just done in your 20s. I think sometimes young 20-year-olds, they put so much pressure on themselves and they
Yes.
don't have to be their 45-year-old self at 20.
Exactly. And just to answer that question, which you said, how do you grow? You allow yourself and the other person to make mistakes. That's how you
Yes.
grow. Right. And the reality is, though, when you cheat, The first time is always the hardest. Everything after that, it gets easier because you
That's
convince
right.
yourself out of it. So the first time was the time that it should have been devastating. Like, oh my God, what did I do? What is going on with that was the hardest time. But then once they do it and they repeat it, it's kind of like, I learned how to cheat better now.
That's
Yes.
right. You are so right. Isn't that funny, right? I
It
love
is
that we're talking
hilarious.
about relationships, and I think that we're really going to be able to help people, especially, I think all ages, but especially young adult women. And I think a big part of it, if you even like add COVID and everything into it, if you're 20 years old and you had 3 years of COVID, that's a lot, right? So just like, but at the same time, I also don't want to watch what I say because we're just saying that relationships for 2 years isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things. Neither will the 3 years of COVID in the grand scheme of things. However, a lot of these females were in high school during that time, and high
Mhm.
school is a time where kiss this one or kiss that. And if you weren't in school and everything's online, what I'm finding now is a different paradigm with my students. I feel like they don't know how to connect
They
because
don't. They don't.
they only
I'm
know how to
connecting.
do it
I'm
online.
connecting as I'm scrolling. That's connecting.
Yes,
You should be. Just because I'm in relationship with you does not mean that goes to the next step. But that is the assumption in the culture that I know I'm communicating to.
me
Because
too.
they're looking like, oh, and you have to come to the why. And you're talking about things that I would love to hear in the comment. Why do you feel as though a physical relationship has to be a part of a relationship in the beginning? And what's your time mark? First date, second date. Now I've talked to some ladies, it's first date. And they're looking like, well, why wouldn't it be? He has not, or she has not, and sometimes it's she, has not proven to you that they are worthy of you sharing that intimacy at that. Hear how sharp, how fine, how handsome, how suave, all of that is. But then you have to realize, one, you don't know the person. And I've had this conversation because, I am, you know, I'm in corporate America, I said, and I have actually been able to, be on the advisory board for young ladies in my job field. And that's what I'm saying. I talk to them. I'm constantly coaching them and helping them, inside and out. So, if we help one young lady not to make a bad decision, then I'm happy with what we're doing today.
Looking for somebody that, like, if you're looking for a serious relationship, that shouldn't be the goal because I also find that a lot of times with males, they want to like chase something. So if you give it up that first
Absolutely.
time, there's nothing to chase.
Great. And see,
And
the
then
thing
you're like,
about
why
it,
didn't they call me?
right, because men are conquerors. Remember, I told you about the task and
Yes.
how they do. Men are conquerors. They are a pursuer. It's the inherent nature of a man. If he can pursue something, if he can conquer something, then he feels as though it's the game. I win. I'm the champion. But then you should be the prize that he wants to win.
Right.
So if there is no challenge, then he's looking like, I'm done with it.
And
Because
if you wait
that's
a while, then the person gets to know who you are. And my thing is, if like a month passes and you're still not physically intimate, that's a good thing because that means that this
absolutely,
person likes you so much that they're not
they're
even
willing to
worried
wait.
about that. Yeah,
No,
they're
they
they're they're
won't
like
even.
that'll come when it does.
That comes back to just, putting things in perspective because the culture is kind of like, oh, I like you, we date, we're great, move in. You're like, how do we get from, you're moving so fast that you don't even have time to process. Do I really know this person? What do I know about this person? How does this person really feel about me? Am I
Right.
just something else to conquer? Or am I something to do at the time? Am I filling a gap? Am I getting you off a rebound? There are so many things that you have to do. So I always tell them, just slow down. Time is your friend
Hmm.
that gives you time to process who they are. Do you really like them? They may smack their teeth. They may eat terrible. You don't even know anything about them, and you're just looking like, oh, because he's just so cute on the football field. He's just so, darling. Please release your hormones, unplug for a minute, and just say, can you really see this person in your future and why?
Because a charming man doesn't mean that they're loving. And at the
No,
same time, intensity doesn't equal love. And I think a lot of times
exactly.
people mistake.
You get connected and addicted to the roller coaster ride. We're up today, we're down tomorrow. We're up today, we're down tomorrow. And you're on that roller coaster ride. So it's the adrenaline rush
You're right.
that you're really addicted to.
And
But
they're
why put
probably
it
the
in a
people that are doing
relationship?
makeup sex.
Yes, yes,
You're
yes.
right.
And
But
I'm thinking,
and if you're listening to this, if you could see how this how it almost is like, how can it not turn out to be that way? It's human behavior, like you were saying. We're here for a reason. So I think we're going to talk a lot about relationships, which is good. I do want to, so for the next talk that we have, let's talk about, well, first of all, people in the comments, please put what you would like to hear us speak about.
Yes, we would love to do some topics for you. Yes.
Absolutely. We have a lot of experience. We have a lot of life experience.
I know when I was coming up that I would have loved to have had a platform like this that I could listen to, put my concerns out there, ask, because you know your parents, I know mine were, they were very prudent as far as things like that. Some things you just didn't talk about. I don't care what you know. Now I had an older sister, but then some things you still didn't talk about then. So where do I go to get my answers? So the only place you go to
Right.
get your answer is from the culture that you're in, which is distorted and confused.
That's right.
So, so they don't know what to tell you. So then you make repeated bad decisions trying to find the right answer. What in the first thing, what is love to those that are in 20? What is love to you? And it has to be something more than something physical. But what really is love? We don't know what love is. We know what lust is, and you find yourself in lust trying to find love, but
That's
then you
right.
keep a cycle because you're checking with this one, you're checking with this one, you're checking with this one. Next thing you know, you got a bad reputation
That's
because
right.
you're searching to be filled and you're going all the wrong places.
That's
So,
absolutely right.
so that's why, just with this channel, we want to help you. I call it avoid the landmines
Yeah.
and repeating the same cycles. And like, how do I get off this cycle? It's the same thing that once you start dipping and dabbing physically, then now your body is going to conform to that. And now you're going to desire something, but now you're not in a relationship. So what do I do?
No,
So
you're
then do
right.
I settle for something that I really don't want just to get the edge off? So it's like you repeat the cycle, but you're more valuable than that. And that's the only thing for whoever's listening. I just want you to know, I want you to be authentically you and to understand you have value. I really want to build a community of a safe place for us to talk. That
And we're
is
going
the
to do that.
Yes, we can build community because it's no wrong answer. Only bad question is a question that's unasked. So,
That's
it's
right.
kind of like what we do in the classroom as far as like, if you have a question and you feel as though no one would answer it, then put it in the comments and see if we can tackle it for you.
Oh, I love that.
Of course, closing remarks is women, let's rise together.
Let's rise together. And if you have nothing nice to say in the comments, don't say it at all.
Get them.
All right, I'm going to close this one out.
Peace.
Mm.
Yes.